20. As a young woman, I hated receiving compliments on my appearance, whether they came from my girlfriends or the men and boys I was interested in. A guy I dated briefly in my early 20s used to make fun of me for how awkward and uncomfortable I'd become when he'd tell me he thought I was beautiful. "Oh my God, you can't handle it," he'd say, watching me as I instantly grew self-conscious. "Shut up," I'd roll my eyes, trying to indicate that he was wrong. "But you're a model, you're known for your beauty," he'd say, confused, waiting for an explanation. I never knew how to answer. I wanted to tell him that I didn't need boys I liked to say that. I was happy to hear that kind of thing on set, when I was making money, but in my private life, I didn't want it. Some part of me was attempting to resist the way I'd learned to conflate beauty with specialness and with love. No thanks, I'd think. I don't want whatever it is they're trying to offer. I don't want their mirror. I don't want that "you're the most beautiful" kind of love. 21. My mother stopped coloring her hair in her early 60s, letting it go gray, then silver, and then, finally, white. She continued to wear it short, its natural volume giving her head shape. She looked pretty, an adjective rarely used for women over 60, but accurate for my mother and her elegant features, made softer with age. "Getting old is strange," she told me one morning, sitting on my blue couch by the window in my Los Angeles loft. I was walking down the street the other day and saw two attractive young men approaching. I didn't even think about it, but I stood up a little straighter to walk past them. She let out a small sigh. And they didn't even look at me, and right then I realized that I'm invisible to them now. All they see is just a lady with gray hair. She looked lovely in the natural light as she spoke. "I guess it's just the way it goes," she shrugged. There was a peacefulness to her. I imagined what it would be like to one day no longer be noticed by men. "Perhaps it's somehow freeing?" I asked. "Maybe," she said finally. 22. I am newly married to my husband when he remarks casually, "There are so many beautiful women in the world." I freeze when he says this. I know it is a perfectly acceptable and truthful thing to remark on, and yet I feel a familiar twist in my gut. "What?" he asks. He can feel the switch. He can sense the instant tension in my body. "I don't know," I reply. I press my face into his chest, ashamed of my reaction. This is gross to read. "I don't know why it hurts to hear you say that." I can tell he wants to console me, but he is confused. Okay, no he's not. No he's not. First of all, he said that on purpose, for fun, because he likes you to be insecure, so he can comfort you, and, you'll press your face into his chest. I can tell he wants to console me, but he is confused. I want him to console me too, but I'm unsure why I need it. Why do I suddenly feel as if he doesn't love me enough? In the small, windowless room that is my therapist's office, I tell her about my reaction to my husband's remark. I explain the gut pain, the assessing, the other women. "Apples and oranges," my therapist tells me. "What if you're not the same as other women? What if you're an entirely different fruit?" she asks gently. I hate that I'm having this conversation. A part of me is horribly embarrassed. I want to stand up and scream. Of course I know this. I hate women who compare themselves to other women. I am not that way. But there is a version of myself who needs to hear what she is saying, because there is also a part of me that wants to correct her. "But everyone has a favorite fruit," I tell her. I feel a tear run down my cheek. "Everyone prefers one over the other. That's how the world works. Everything is ranked. One is always better than the other." Okay, so now we're done with an experience for all those years of her life leading up to 21. Blurred lines. When I dropped out of college to work full-time as a model, I like to tell friends that the French word for model is mannequin. "So," I'd say, shrugging, "I'm a mannequin for a living." She knew. She always knew. Around that same time, I caught a terrible stomach flu and lost 10 pounds in 1 week. After I recovered, I kept the weight off, realizing that I was booking more shoots with my thinner body. I began wearing platform shoes at all times, even when I dressed in the dark, to arrive at a shoot before sunrise, because I never wanted to give clients the opportunity to see that I was shorter than most models. I became skilled with time management, something I'd constantly struggled with in high school and in my only year of college, when I was perpetually the girl walking into class 10 minutes late. I learned the traffic patterns of Los Angeles, making sure to always wake up with time to spare, and alerting my agent if I was even just a few minutes behind. I let clients photograph and style me however they wanted, even when I hated the way they made me look. I made these adjustments to my behavior and attitude and body with one objective in mind: money. I considered my life and work as a model as a temporary situation, one that protected me from the fate most of my older friends had suffered after the financial crash in 2008, when they had to move back into their parents' homes, saddled with student debt, and return to the service industry jobs they'd held as teenagers. Money meant freedom and control, and all I had to do to fund my independence was learn to become someone else a few times a week, strip down and get greased up in body oil to pose suggestively in red lace lingerie or brightly printed bikinis I'd never choose to wear, pouting at the command of some middle-aged male photographer. Once I quit school and got the flu, I reached a new level of financial success. Lingerie and swimsuits paid more than the normal day rate for a standard e-commerce job, and I had several clients who booked me regularly for what my body did for their products. I remember coming out of a dressing room in a lingerie set and one female client remarking that it was hard to find girls that are so skinny and can also fill out a bra. My cup size was valuable and a rare asset, one that translated directly to a higher paying job. It also limited the type of work I could do, though. I was a commercial swim girl, meaning that I could shoot catalogs, but I'd never work in high fashion. The more money I made from modeling, the more I enjoyed having it. I had no rich friends, and for that reason I kept my indulgences private, driving alone to a clothing store where, only a year or so before, my high school girlfriends and I had never dared to buy anything, only occasionally stopping by to look. We'd leave quickly the moment a salesperson asked, "Can I help you girls with anything?" Now I luxuriated in going to the store alone, gripping my faux leather plastic purse, and touching the hanging garments with the tips of my fingers, feeling a thrill go up my spine as I responded, "Yes, thank you, I'd like to try this on." Sometimes I'd buy an item of clothing and other times I'd leave empty-handed, elated by the experience either way. One night, after a solo shopping excursion, I wore a brand new navy jacket to meet a friend. She asked me when I bought it. "Today," I told her. She shook her head. "Damn," she said. "So nice to just be able to walk into a store and pick something out whenever you feel like it, huh?" I studied her, relieved to see that she wasn't resentful. I felt embarrassed by the new difference. I guess the way I said what... I assumed she was resentful, so her tone, I think I tried to make it sound a little resentful. But I guess according to Emily, she was not resentful at all. I felt embarrassed by the new difference in our lives, but was also grateful she could appreciate my pleasure. She was right. It was so nice. I found a cheap ground floor loft to lease in downtown Los Angeles and paid $12.50 a month in cash, dropping off a thick envelope with my landlord, who stank of patchouli oil, and lived in the loft directly above me. The space was entirely concrete and had only one window, complete with metal bars, which looked out on a parking lot. The ceilings were so low that in the platforms I'd come to wear religiously, I could reach up and place the palms of my hands flat against them. Gosh, it sounds horrible. It sounds so bad. None of this bothered me, though. I was thrilled to have what I considered to be a spacious loft, many times bigger than any place I'd lived in previously. Ever. I painted the walls and ceiling white and pinned dollar store Christmas lights around the headboard of my bed. One of my favorite things to do after a day of work was to pick up some Thai food from a takeout place close to my building and sit on my bed, complete with the quilt I'd bought from Urban Outfitters for $60 and the bed frame I'd borrowed from my parents' house. Nights like these were what I lived for. I couldn't imagine anything more luxurious or enjoyable. I like to explain to people that I paid only $1 per square foot when they asked why I lived so far from Hollywood, the center of the modeling industry. I took pride in being in what was called the Arts District, a neighborhood that was considered funky and up and coming. Probably gentrified. It was quite a commute, at least a 45-minute drive to most of my shoots and castings. But I liked the distance the loft offered me from the world of photographers, agencies, and clients, and most of all I liked the identity my edgy neighborhood bestowed upon me. On my drive home from work, I'd transformed back from a mannequin to myself. Within a year, I was featured in a few editorials for a Los Angeles-based magazine that got the attention of several blogs and fashion and men's sites, leading my agent to suggest a trip to New York to meet with agencies on the East Coast, as well as Sports Illustrated and Victoria's Secret. "But aren't I too short for New York?" I asked. The same agent had told me only a year or so before that the fashion world was not an option for me. There's just no point in you trying to be something you aren't, she'd said simply. Not necessarily, she told me now, avoiding my eyes. As the number on my scale went down, the number on my checks had been going up. The agency had taken notice. I stayed in a tiny hotel room in Midtown, with a rough beige carpeting, and a small instant coffee maker that I used each morning before my castings. There was no proper full-size mirror in the room, so I climbed onto the bed in my heels to check out my outfit before grabbing my portfolio and heading out. Despite the expense, I took taxis to castings, reading the addresses from my email, not confident enough to navigate New York City's subway system. Well, I'm not confident enough to use public transit. I have to pay for taxis. Still, I was mindful of how much money I was spending, knowing that the cost of the flights and hotel would be deducted from my next paycheck. I felt tiny as I entered the grand lobby of the Victoria's Secret building. A man in a crisp suit and tie greeted me from behind a long silver desk. "Casting?" he asked, his eyes heavy and his expression blank. I nodded, encouraged that he had identified me as a model. Maybe I do belong here, I thought. Upstairs I waited alone below a silver Victoria's Secret sign, surrounded by giant blown-up black and white images of recognizable models, or, as Victoria's Secret referred to them, angels, arching their backs and holding index fingers up to their mouths as if flirtatiously telling me to shush. A floor-to-ceiling screen displayed a parade of long-legged women strutting down a runway, wearing sparkling lingerie and large, colorful wings. They came toward me, one after another, their hair bouncing as they smiled wide, their eyes looking just beyond mine. They were the goddesses of this large, modern office building, and these screens were their shrines. They were mannequins too, I knew, but they seemed to feel powerful in a way I never did. I wanted to be one of them. I sat mesmerized until a woman came out from behind two double doors and greeted me, pulling my attention away. "Follow me," she instructed, glancing at my platforms and then quickly at my face. I stayed a few paces behind her as she led me through an expansive open-plan office. No one looked up from their desk as we passed. She opened a door to a small room filled with drawers of bras and underwear and directed me to take off my clothes in the corner. "Shoes too, please," she said, pointing towards my feet. I walked on my tiptoes over to a wall where she silently measured my height and took several flash images of me with a digital camera, making note on a piece of paper before thanking me, barely glancing up as I scurried out the door. Afterward, I headed uptown to meet with an agency. "We don't love the shorts," they told me, inspecting a pair of black denim cutoffs I was wearing over tights. "Can you take them off?" I nodded. "Of course," I responded, slipping the frayed cutoffs down my legs and over my platform boots. "Much better," said a young woman with a French accent, not doing a French accent, as she studied my hips. "Now we can see how small you are. We'll be in touch." The next day, I made sure to leave the shorts at home, dressing only in a black crop top and tights. I stood on the bed, checking the small mirror to make sure that the tights weren't too sheer. At my Sports Illustrated casting, two female editors leafed through the heavy plastic pages of my portfolio. Sorry. They glanced from the pictures back to me and asked if I ever smiled. "We like girls who smile here at SI," they explained, shutting my book with a thud. Back on 7th Avenue, I huddled over my iPhone, desperate to return to my hotel room and crawl beneath its unfamiliar sheets. I stood in the sun, enjoying the break in scrutiny, when a man approached me, staring at my crotch. "I can see your pussy," he muttered without meeting my eyes. I felt the sting of shame, but I refused to let myself cry. Through the years, I developed a necessary and protective immunity to the frequent disappointments and rejections that came with modeling. I didn't allow myself to become excited about shoots or potential jobs. I didn't care if my image ended up on a billboard or in a magazine, as long as the check cleared. I wasn't interested in fame or notoriety, just the cash, or at least that's what I told myself. Yeah, that's what you told yourself, babe. In New York, I broke my own rules. I let myself imagine the power, beyond money, that other women seem to have gained by becoming successful. I returned to Los Angeles with a renewed sense of resolve and determination. Fine, I wasn't going to be a supermodel, but I was going to make as much money as I possibly could with the options I had. It was around this time that an email came in through my agent about a music video featuring T.I. and Pharrell. It's Pharrell, right? Because I knew somebody who always told me it was for real, and you said it like for real, and I didn't believe her, but I never really found out, but I'm not going to say for real. Music video featuring T.I. and Pharrell, whom I admired, and a singer called Robin Thicke, whom I'd never heard of. You know, speaking of Robin Thicke, though, and I'll link this down below, but he made a song like forever ago, way before this one came out, that is so fucking creepy. I'll post the lyrics, like, I don't know, here or on Twitter. Probably on Twitter. Okay, attached to my agent's email was a treatment, a PDF filled with words and pictures describing the director's vision for the video. Lying in bed that morning, I scrolled through the document. Bright red text spelling out "thick," paired with images shot by Terry Richardson of topless, red lipstick girls with messy hair, were interspersed with bolded phrases like, "Let's break the fucking rules." A section titled "Tone" listed, "True pimp swag, dumb shit in a very smart contemporary way, Vice Mag style." Wow. I mean, like, that tracks, I guess. A man would write that. There's more. And "Naked girls XXX tits bush red lipstick." Bush? Was there bush? I don't remember there being bush. I read the misspelled text underneath the section, "The girls," out loud to the guy I was seeing at the time. "She's the best kind of girl. She's 100% confident. This is far from misogynist, MASOGYNIST. It's giving crazy props to girls who have this unbelievable sexual visual power." I was surprised to see that the director was a woman. I searched the email for the rate. "Oh wow," I said. The fee was barely more than I got for shooting one day of e-commerce for Forever 21. Fuck that. Basically just another shitty music video with a bunch of naked girls, I told my agent to pass that same morning. But Diane Martel, the director, persisted, sending me a personal note. Could I at least come and meet her to discuss the project? The list of music videos Diane had directed, Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, J-Lo, was certainly impressive. When my agent said he thought there was room on the money, I agreed to drive to West Hollywood, struggling to parallel park in a metered spot in front of a photo studio on Santa Monica Boulevard. Inside, Diane remained seated as I stood in front of her wearing a mini dress and heels, gripping my portfolio, which she did not ask to see. She told me that the director of photography would be a young woman I'd worked with recently called Olivia. I softened at the mention of her name. I'd liked the pictures she'd taken of me. They were pretty and ethereal, and there had only been women on set when we worked together. "I've known Olivia her whole life," Diane said. "She's so talented, and so young. You know how pretty she makes everyone. Not slutty. And it'll be mostly all women behind this." She's talking about blurred lines? It'll be mostly all women behind this? Wow. Evil fucking lizard lady probably takes off her skin when she gets home. Her leg bounced rhythmically as she spoke. Yeah. "I want this to be funny, like a spoof. I know you're an actress. I want you to be acting in this." Acting like a fucking whore. "Okay," I said, "but the money still has to come up." She nodded. In traffic on my drive home on the 10 freeway, I heard from my agent that the rate had increased to a decent amount with an added bonus for overtime. I hung up and rolled down the window, feeling the air from passing cars. I figured, what the hell? Who watches music videos anymore anyway? The shoot for the video was at a large studio in Silver Lake, only a 15-minute drive from my loft. I arrived with an empty stomach, having made sure not to eat too much the night before because I knew I'd be naked, topless at the very minimum, on set the first day. I poured myself some coffee from the craft services table and looked around. Diane hadn't lied. I was glad to see she had filled the set with women, the DP, the stylist, the props designer, and the makeup artist. The two other models who were taking part arrived and sat in chairs next to me, facing a long mirror. A striking, soft-spoken black woman with a French accent who introduced herself as Jessie, and a blonde named Elle who caught my eye in the mirror. A makeup artist assistant applied red lipstick to her mouth as she put up a hand to gesture hello. "Do you feel comfortable?" the costume designer asked as I tried on various different white undergarments and plastic see-through tops and shorts. She explained that these looks were for the censored version of the video, which we would shoot at the same time as the unrated, naked one. I liked her immediately. She had bleached hair cut into a pixie and wore Doc Martens and was the kind of girl I'd want to be friends with, but hardly ever met on jobs. Diane came to the makeup room to check in with me before we began. "Do you feel good?" she asked. I ran my hands over the white underwear and nodded. I felt like I was part of the team. I went to the set to shoot first, leaving Elle and Jessie in the hair and makeup area. A woman only a few years older than me, wearing a white jumpsuit, introduced herself as the props manager. She pointed toward a long table filled with various objects that were to be used in the video. "What do you want to start with?" I picked out an oversized styrofoam hand with red nails. She handed it to me proudly. She had made it herself. "Do you know we have farm animals coming later?" This wasn't something I was used to. Cool women around my age being enthusiastic about the job we were working on. My mood shifted. Maybe this day would be fun. The song, which I had never heard before, began blaring across the giant soundstage. 3 beats thudded in the air before a voice called out, "Everybody get up!" Olivia smiled at me from behind the camera. "Just have a good time. Dance how you want." Diane yelled through a megaphone from the dark beyond the brightly lit, pristinely white stage. I danced ridiculously, loosely, the way I would to entertain my girlfriends. I was surprised to find I was enjoying myself. Diane cracked up through her megaphone. Robin Thicke arrived later. I was posing on all fours in underwear, a red toy car in the arch of my back. He kept his sunglasses on and waved to me and the crew, flashing a smile as he walked towards the makeup room. Hours passed. Jessie and Elle joined me on stage along with Pharrell, Robin, and T.I. We all barely spoke, aside from some quick introductions made by Diane, the musicians giving us a nod. They were the talent. We were more like props. I wasn't bothered. I was there to work. The animals showed up and I held a lamb in my lap, observing. Robin focused his attention on Pharrell and T.I., his teeth showing. I thought it said showering. His teeth showing. That's gross, too. I'm imagining his teeth. As he threw his head back in laughter, his eyes still covered by dark sunglasses. They smiled politely but did not return his animated enthusiasm. Under the lights, our plastic shorts and tops fogged up with heat and sweat from our bodies. The smell of alcohol leaked from Robin's body. I was gonna say, when he was in there, like when he was like, he went in like hair and makeup and didn't come out for a while, I was thinking like he's in there doing drugs or drinking. I was right. The smell of alcohol leaked from Robin's body as he alternated between lip syncing and actual singing. The song started up for what seemed like the millionth time that day. The same 3 beats filled the room in hard succession. Diane continued to yell directions through her megaphone. We stripped down to our flesh-colored thongs for the unrated version. Pharrell and Elle smirked flirtatiously at each other. I put on ludicrously tall white platform sneakers and danced in front of the rest of the cast. "Let's get these ladies a drink," Robin said to one of his assistants, and within minutes someone brought us red plastic cups half filled with ice and alcohol. I took a few sips, but I'd never particularly liked vodka, and I was too hot and worn out from shooting to drink any more. The song started up again. It's so fucked. Like, they know these girls are starving. Like, they know. They're like skinny ass models. She didn't eat anything, and then she shows up, and then they're like, drink this straight liquor over ice. Definitely didn't put anything in it, for sure. Okay, the song started up again. Hey, I don't even... God, I'm so sorry, but I'm not editing it. Hey. Jessie looked over at me and shook her head. "Too hot," she mouthed, running a hand over her slick-backed hair. I continued to wiggle around the stage, trying to recapture the fun I'd been having entertaining Olivia and Diane. I rolled my eyes at the antics of the famous men we were working with. The whole world saw me roll my eyes in the final, viral edit. I'm gonna have to look that up. In a matter of months, Blurred Lines catapulted me to global fame. The first time someone stopped me, yelling, "Emily?" I was on the phone with my mother, crossing the street in my neighborhood. I looked at the man, confused, studying his face in an effort to try and place it. "I love Blurred Lines," he exclaimed, smiling widely, before asking for a selfie. I was stunned. Online people debated whether the video was misogynistic. The way my fellow models and I were writhing, and almost naked, in the unrated version in front of the male musicians raised eyebrows. I mean, it's bad enough in the fucking censored one. I haven't even seen the unrated. Journalist after journalist asked me the same question. What do you say to those who have deemed the video anti-feminist? The world was shocked to hear me respond that I didn't see it that way. I was secure in my body and my nakedness on set. I'd tell them honestly. I focused on how I felt during the majority of the shoot, remembering being in the company of many women I trusted and liked. After the success of the video, I moved to New York and signed with the same agency that had rejected me only a year before. I shot Sports Illustrated. I was happy to discover that fame had granted me access to 2 new sources of income: appearances, where I could show up to an event or speak with a media outlet about a product, and sponsored posts on my Instagram, both of which paid more than what I had made in a week as a working model prior to the video. Mainly, though, I was disoriented. I grew tired of talking about the music video and sharing my thoughts on it, feeling a distinct twinge of dislike whenever Robin Thicke's name was mentioned or placed next to mine. I was grateful for my career, but I resented that every profile began with a mention of blurred lines, a music video I'd only agreed to do in order to make some money. I didn't know how to marry the identity and ego that I'd kept as separate as possible from my work with the one that the world was now labeling as a sex symbol. Since I'd been in high school, modeling had just been a job, and now suddenly it seemed to be who I was. I flailed. Continuing to relate to my work passively, I signed up to be in movies that I didn't have any interest in and modeled for brands I thought were lame. I floated through the next couple of years. In between frequent shoots and travel, I spent too much time on the internet and in bed and out drinking with people I didn't particularly like. I knew that by most standards I should be happy. I'd achieved the thing that all aspiring actresses and models are thought to want: to be known for their beauty and desirability. "You've made it," the friend who had commented on my navy jacket years before wrote to me on Facebook, reminding me of how the world viewed my success. But I wasn't just famous. I was famously sexy, which, in many ways, felt gratifying. It had seemed obvious to me that the most desirable, attractive woman was always the most powerful in any given room, just like the Victoria's Secret models who marched toward me on that giant screen. And in many ways, my life did change. Strangers greeted me with enthusiasm. Famous men I'd had crushes on as a child hit on me. Oh wow, that's so cool. Like old, washed-up famous men hit on you. Men you had crushes on as a child. Beautiful women talked to me as if I were one of them. "You are one of them. You know that you're one of them. You just got done talking about how you've known your whole life that you're beautiful." I was on the covers of magazines, got invited to glamorous parties I'd never dreamed of attending. Forget Thai food and chain store quilts. Now I was being sent endless boxes of free designer clothes. I could show up at popular restaurants in New York or Los Angeles and be seated whenever I liked. And I had more money than I'd ever imagined making. I put a down payment on a loft only a few blocks from my place in the arts district. This time a place with a giant window and plenty of light and a pool on the roof. I was even able to give my parents some cash. I know I'm talking a lot of shit about her, but, I don't hate her, and I relate to a lot of her experiences that she's talking about here, and I'm glad that she wrote this book, and I hope that she doesn't ever find this and get pissed and, sue me or something, but I do mean all of that. Yet I felt like I was spinning and out of control. I hadn't chosen this life, and I was unsure of how I had ended up living it and what it meant about who I would become. I hated going to auditions, especially for TV and film, where I almost always read in front of several men who I was convinced thought very little of me. "They already think I suck," I'd tell myself. "I'm nothing more than an LA piece of ass to them. I'm not talented. I'm not even that pretty." You could be talented, and you would still be nothing more than an LA piece of ass to them. I'd barely rehearsed for these auditions, reading the pages once or twice before going in, paralyzed by self-loathing. Did I even want to be an actress? I couldn't remember when or how this had become the thing I was supposed to pursue and excel in. I'd always imagined myself as someone who had ideas and made decisions. I'd get in my car after one of these readings, feeling worthless, and think about how I'd rather be in the position of the men in these rooms, choosing whom to hire for my projects. It was years later when I was scrolling through Instagram half distracted, my thumb moving busily over the screen, that a photo of Robin Thicke and his much younger girlfriend appeared in my feed. I recognized her face and long, lean body, realizing that I'd met her years before in LA when we were both working models, shooting swim and lingerie e-commerce in shitty warehouses in Alhambra and Vernon. She'd just had a baby, E! News announced. I looked through her photos, studying the wideness of her smile next to the bloated softness of her partner's jawline. "I love you, baby daddy," one caption read. I clicked on Thick's handle, surprised to see my screen fill with white. User not found, and no posts yet were placed next to his name. I'd been blocked. He blocked her on Instagram? What? I racked my brain to figure out why. Had I said something in the press that might have offended him? Then I remembered something that had happened on the Blurred Lines set that I'd never told anyone about, something I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge until that moment, half a decade later. He did something he wasn't supposed to do. Oh, did he? It was later that day, when Thick returned to the set, a little drunk, to shoot just with me. Jesus Christ, I mean, of course, like, he would sexually assault or harass her, but I didn't know that was gonna be what we were talking about right now, so that sucks. I could tell that his mood from earlier had shifted. He didn't seem to be enjoying himself in the same way. He didn't like the lack of attention he was getting from the people he hired to make his music video. Now it was just him and me, alone on the Tundra soundstage. The Tundra soundstage. He was dressed in a black suit, and I was in nothing but white sneakers and a flesh-colored thong. The same 3 notes. Same Diane yelling through her megaphone. Same sweat dripping. Same, "Everybody get up!" Again, I danced as ridiculously as possible. Diane yelled excitedly, "You're fucking funny. Make that face again." Robin put his sunglasses on as he sang along, his vague annoyance palpable. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I felt the coolness and foreignness of a stranger's hands cupping my bare breast from behind. I instinctively moved away, looking back at Robin Thicke. He smiled a goofy grin and stumbled backward, his eyes concealed behind his sunglasses. My head turned to the darkness beyond the set. Diane's voice cracked as she yelled out to me, "Are you okay?" I nodded, and I may have even smiled, embarrassed and desperate to minimize the situation. I tried to shake off the shock. I walked away from the set and the warm lights, crossing my arms over my bare chest. I felt naked for the first time that day. The music stopped. I stood by the monitor for a moment and glanced around at my new friends. No one, not one of us, said anything. Diane finally spoke. "Okay, well, no touching." She addressed no one in particular, her megaphone now hanging loosely at her hip. "This woman is evil. All the women who worked on this and allowed this to happen are evil. I guess, except for the models being taken advantage of. I guess all of them are living under patriarchy, whatever, but this lady right here, who saw that happen, evil. Straight to hell." I pushed my chin forward and shrugged, avoiding eye contact, feeling the heat of humiliation pump through my body. I didn't react. Not really. Not like I should have. Neither did any of the other women. Despite how many of us were there and how safe I'd felt in their presence, we were in no position to hold Robin Thicke accountable on the set of his music video. We were working for him, after all. We paused awkwardly, and then we continued shooting. When journalists asked me about the video over the years, I didn't allow myself to think about Robin Thicke's hands on my breasts, or of the embarrassment I'd felt standing naked in front of Diane. I was defensive, protective of the environment she had tried to create on set, and of the other young women who seemed like they could have been my friends. I was also ashamed of the fun that, despite myself, I'd had dancing around naked. How powerful I felt, how in control. I wondered, what if I had yelled in Robin Thicke's face and made a scene, stopped the shoot? Maybe my big break never would have happened. In my early 20s, it had never occurred to me that the women who gained their power from beauty were indebted to the men whose desire granted them that power in the first place. Those men were the ones in control, not the women the world fawned over. Facing the reality of the dynamics at play would have meant admitting how limited my power really was, how limited any woman's power is when she survives and even succeeds in the world as a thing to be looked at. That's pretty self-aware. With one gesture, Robin Thicke had reminded everyone on set that we women weren't actually in charge. I didn't have any real power as the naked girl dancing around in his music video. I was nothing more than the hired mannequin. More like blow-up sex doll, but, she gets the point. Anyway, we're at, like, half an hour, and I've just reached a break, and it's going to go to the next chapter next, so I'm going to go ahead and end this, and, I will finish it later. Thank you if you are listening, if there is anyone listening. I appreciate that a lot, and I hope that my commentary on this one wasn't too annoying, but I really can't help it, especially on this book. Okay, I hope that you have a good day or a good night. I don't know why I'm having trouble ending this.